Hey everybody, this is Jess Rizzo Stafford for Dance Teacher Web, and I'm here with Jenna today, and we are here to give you a how-to on how to increase stretch and flexibility for the hip flexors, in particular your psoas muscle. So the psoas muscle is super important because it is the connector from the torso to the legs, and it affects and really helps with posture and stabilizing the spine. And as teachers, we often hear of tight hip flexors and dancers and young students looking for stretches in those hip flexors because it does affect all the different parts of the body, particularly a lot of back issues sometimes are related to the hip flexors and tight hip flexors. So we're going to show you some stretches that you may or may not have seen before, and we're going to, again, work slowly. When you're doing stretches with your dancers, try to maintain at least a minute in each stretch so that we really get the muscles working, and that's super, super important. Okay, so we're in tabletop. We want to make sure that we're pulling the belly button up to the spine so that we're not arching, and Jenna's head is in alignment and her shoulders are over her, her wrists. Okay, so from here she's going to extend her leg out to the side and she's going to press down into the foot here. Now, she can take a little bit of a back arch here and she's going to press, and here she's going to get a stretch into that hip flexor, into that psoas muscle, and we're going to hold here, and then she's going to pull her belly button back to the spine and release, and she's going to make whatever little adjustments that she needs here. Now everybody's a little bit different. You may need to tweak it to the side a little bit or to the front, whatever you need to do, but pressing down into that outside of that heel is going to activate the hip flexor to get that nice juicy stretch in there. And we would hold that for 30 seconds to a minute ideally. From here, Jenna's going to move her foot forward. So now we're changing the position. It's just changing the angle of the stretch a little bit. So again, everybody has different spots where they need a little bit more attention. You may be tighter in one area than the other, but the psoas muscle and the hip flexors, super important to make sure that they are stretched properly. And we're going to stretch here, and we're going to turn Jenna's foot even a little bit more parallel there. And she's going to press in, and she can contract back a little bit and then bring her belly button back to the spine into neutral position. Good. And then she's actually going to bring her leg back on the diagonal, pressing down, and again, she's going to do whatever tweaks that she needs, keeping the weight into the foot there. Beautiful. Okay, so that's one stretch. So from here, we're actually going to take it, Jenna's going to take it into a plank position. This is more of an active stretch, so she's going to go into a full plank. She's going to bring her leg in parallel, tucking in, and she's going to bring her head down to meet her foot in parallel, right? And then she's going to extend out, and she's going to rotate the leg, and she's going to turn it out very slowly, and she's going to bring it back to that parallel position. Contracting in, so engaging that core, bringing the head to the knee, extending out, and then turning out and pressing into the stretch in that hip flexor. And again, you could do this 4 times, 8 times, whatever you need, and obviously you want to make sure that you do right and left side. So that's exercise number 2. Exercise number 3, we're going to come into a stretch. Now this stretch may vary a little bit for people depending on how shallow or their hip sockets are, but ideally we want to get into this crouching position, and this is a great hip flexor and great stretch for the pelvic floor and the sacrum, and we're just going to hang out here basically, and it's just going to open up the hip flexors. You can hang out there for a minute. It helps with rotation as well, making sure that we're over our feet, that we're not sinking back and rolling out on the feet, and just taking some nice deep breaths. We can even use the elbows to push the legs open a little bit to get a little bit more intensity in the stretch on the hip flexor. Good. And now Jenna's going to lay on her back with her knees to her chest. And here we're just going to do some knee circles. And again, this is another active stretch for the hip flexors, and we're going to just circle them out 4 or 8 times, whatever feels good, and we're going to rotate them in. And then we're going to tuck those knees into the chest, and we're going to hold, stretch, stretch, stretch. We're going to release, and we're going to repeat those circles again, as slow as you can go, kind of feeling where you need a little bit extra attention that day, and reversing. And then we're going to finish with that last stretch, tucking in, tight, 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 breathing in, and then releasing the legs out. Send them extend, and then giving them a little shake. Good. And then the last stretch we're going to have for you is we're going to sit up, and this is a very Pilates-based mermaid stretch, but we're going to start with right leg in front and the left leg wrapped behind, and we're going to take the left hand to the left foot, And we're going to stretch over to the side. And we want to make sure here that we don't release in our back, that we're keeping everything contracted and really stretched over. And again, you may need to tweak, you may want to turn out a little bit, you may want to close it in a little bit. You have to do what's right for you on any given day, right? And we're going to stretch here. And then we're going to take the right hand to the back diagonal, and we're going to push through the hip flexors and push through that pelvis so that we're getting a beautiful stretch right here in the front part of the hip flexor, stretching through and coming down. And I usually do 2 sets of this. So I'll stretch again, then we'll have a little bit more range of motion, you'll notice, on the second time, and coming out. And then we're going to hit that diagonal, and we're going to press and push as much as we can through, getting whatever intensity you need for the day. And of course, we will repeat that on the left side. So those are some quick, effective exercises for hip flexors and your psoas muscle, and super important to keep them stretched, healthy, and in good condition. Thanks so much.